What's up, everyone? This is NBA star Gordon Hayward, and you just heard.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of You Heard, where athletes, influencers, and celebrities share their NFL fandom. In today's episode, we have retired NBA star forward Gordon Hayward joining us to help us get ready for Sunday's game against the Colts. Gordon, thank you so much for taking the time to be on with us. Appreciate the time. You are an Indy guy, born and raised there. When did you start to follow the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. As you said, I was a Colts fan for as long as I can remember. My parents were Colts fans. I remember going to the old, I believe it was the RCA Dome growing up, which was nice that it was a dome because it gets pretty cold there in Indy, and so we were spoiled with being inside the dome. But then as I grew up, the Colts were really, really good, and so I was lucky that obviously Peyton, I think, was drafted like in 1998. I was born in 1990. So, I mean, 8 years old, you're about as big of a super fan of sports as you can be then. And so I followed them, through high school, where I think they won it in 2007. And
Super
so
Bowl 41.
that's right. And so that was obviously really fun. There was so many Super Bowl parties and stuff to go to. And so I was pretty blessed to grow up a Colts fan.
So growing up as a Colts fan, growing up in the heyday where Peyton Manning was your quarterback, you're obviously a gifted athlete. As a young kid, before you decided, okay, basketball is my thing, did you ever have any thoughts of like, hey, the NFL is cool, football is cool? Did you play both sports growing up?
Yeah. So, I mean, this was back in the 90s where everybody played all sports. So it was something where I played football. I actually only played football. Sorry about that. I only played
No, you're
football
good.
for 1 year because it was a fifth and sixth grade league. I was fifth grader. We ran the option. I was the quarterback. We ran the option every play. I'm getting hit every play, even if I pitch it. And so I'm complaining to my dad at the time, like, Dad, why are they hitting me? I don't even have the ball. And it was one of those things where he's like, son, if you don't like getting hit or don't like hitting other people, like football is not going to be for you. So that was the end of my football career. Indiana is also, it's a basketball state.
Yes.
Everybody there loves and is obsessed with basketball. So I think I ultimately chose the right path. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, you're always out in the backyard playing football. At recess, we would play football. So I think it still is. I loved playing it, loved watching it. It's still just one of those things that everybody did as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, you are from Indiana, such a basketball state. You play at Butler collegiately. Was it always in you? You have the size 6'7" forward. Was it always in you to feel like, okay, this is going to be my path?
Absolutely not. My parents are both 5'10", so 5'10" is tall for a girl, but there's nobody else in my family that's over 6 feet tall.
No way.
Um,
Your parents are
oh
5'10"
yeah,
and you're 6'7".
that's right. And
That's
so
crazy.
it was like I said, no one else in my family is over 6 feet tall. So it was a dream of mine to play in the NBA, but it really I never thought it would be a reality. Coach Stevens at Butler was actually the first one that told me like, hey, I think you might be able to play in the NBA one day. Um, so growing up, I actually almost quit basketball to play tennis. I played tennis in high school. I was probably better at tennis than basketball. I thought I wanted to play a college sport. Maybe tennis is the route that I should go. Luckily, I kind of grew gradually over my 4 years in high school, and that obviously ended up being what kind of saved me, because you do have to be a little bit tall in basketball generally. And but no, I never thought it really, like, I wasn't recruited very highly. I wasn't on any of the rankings. I wasn't like a 5-star or 4-star recruit or anything. So I mean, it just kind of just worked out for me, the whole basketball route.
Wow, so cool. Well, let's go back to the team that's playing on Sunday against the Bills. It's the Indianapolis Colts. Rough patch of the season for the Colts. They're 4-5 right now. They've made a quarterback change to Joe Flacco. Anthony Richardson, the guy who they drafted in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft, is now on the bench. Who knows if he's going to be on the bench for the rest of the season? Who knows what their plan is going forward? Do you have a take on this whole scenario?
I mean, it's really tough to say. I from a basketball standpoint, it's weird because you do have like a starting spot, but you can be almost just as impactful off the bench in basketball. I can't imagine a game where it's just like you're not starting and like you're not going to play at all. Like that would be really tough. And then to switch the person that is playing like halfway through, I think mentally it's tough on both of those guys. It's also tough on the team. Like you got the whole team dynamic of guys having rhythms with certain guys, and it's a lot. So I rooting for whoever is going to be starting. I know Anthony Richardson was banged up a little bit, had some injuries throughout the early part of this season. So yeah, it has been tough. I mean, I don't know if we scored an offensive touchdown last night, so we got to try to figure something out here, especially playing against the Bills.
You guys hung around for a while against the Minnesota Vikings. It wasn't their best game either, so it wasn't like it was a huge blowout by the Vikings at all. Do you have any favorite players on this version of the Indianapolis Colts right now?
Well, I think my favorite player's got to be Jonathan Taylor. I mean, if we get him going, generally we're doing pretty well. We've been in almost every game this season. Like it's been close, relatively close, and it's just like a little bit here or there. And instead of 4-5, maybe you're 6-3 or something like that. Which is, I mean, that's every sport. It usually comes down to a couple of possessions here or there, and it's can make or break. But yeah, if we can get Jonathan Taylor going, I think we'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you guys rank top 10 in yards per rush, and so when Jonathan Taylor does get going, it gets a lot easier for the offense as a whole. The Bills have a quarterback in Josh Allen who is well known amongst the NFL. He's one of the best. We feel very lucky that he's the one throwing the rock for us. What do you know about Josh Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I know that he's a monster. He is a beast. It seems like he can do it all, right? I mean, he's got a huge arm. He can throw. He can sit in the pocket. He also can use his legs. He's tough to bring down. It's hard for me to see, like, when I watch the game, you see guys, and it's hard to tell how big they are. But I know that Josh Allen is like a big quarterback, right? Like he is. So he's hard to stop. And so I think you just got to try to make it difficult on him, not let him get going.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like you now get to sit down and watch more NFL games now that you're retired and not in season or constantly working on your body? Is that one of the fun things that retirement has led you to do, is to be able to sit on the couch and just watch professional sports?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been telling all my, people here in Trey, like this is going to be like my first fall in forever, where I'm not getting ready for the season, or basketball's already obviously going, and so it's nice to be able to sit down on Saturdays, sit down on Sundays, get the games on. We're watching Red Zone, and I'm able to I'm betting on some games, like the whole deal. I'm a true NFL fan now, and so it's been fun. It's been a lot of years where I haven't been able to do that, so it's fun to be able to sit back and watch the games.
What is your hope for the Colts this season as they're past the midway point in the season, kind of trying to figure out who they are identity-wise? We talked about the quarterback situation, a tough spot to be in. And going forward, it's kind of like, what are they going to do at that quarterback spot?
Right, right. Well, I think for them, it's you try to just sneak in the playoffs here, and once you get in the playoffs, it's a completely different season. I was the same thing with the NBA too. Like no matter what happens during the regular season, when you're in the playoffs, it's a fresh start. It doesn't matter what happened before, and football even more. You're playing one game, and so if we get hot there at the end, you never know what's going to happen. But like I said, I hope we can just try to find a way to get in the playoffs there.
How do you look at that? The amount of games that are played in an NBA season versus the amount of games played in an NFL season. I mean, there's 18 weeks in an NFL season, 17 games. That's like a tiny fraction of what an NBA season is.
True. But I would say it is the amount of physicality of an NBA season, although it is a physical sport, is probably a tiny fraction compared to what those guys go through every single Sunday. So they need all those days just to try to get their body right so they can then get back out there on Sunday. I mean, it's a war, as you know.
Yeah, it really is. The rehab days leading up to the next game are a must for a lot of these guys in this building, especially as you get up in your career, your veteran days. You're spending a lot of time trying to rehab and get your body right before Sunday. You played in the NBA for 14 seasons, played for a few teams in the Jazz, the Celtics, the Hornets, and the Thunder, but you retire in August. How's life as a retired NBA player?
Yeah, well, as we kind of just alluded to it, it's been good so far. Being able to be at home, spend more time with family. I mean, I'm full in on the typical, dad duties. I mean, I'm driving my kids to school in the morning every morning. We're doing homework at night. We actually got basketball evaluations tonight.
Nice.
So I'm going to go and I'm going to be an assistant coach for my oldest daughter. And so I mean, we're full on and I'm all in on it, and it's been really fun. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I decided to retire, was because I felt like I was starting to miss stuff with my family and with my kids. I'm missing events, missing even the little things like being able to say goodnight to them and help them get in bed and all that, all those things. And so I'm really enjoying getting the chance to do that now.
When you leave a sport, whether it be the NFL or the NBA, and you play it for upwards of 10 to 15 years, the identity part of life after playing in the NFL or the NBA it magnifies itself. Your identity of what am I going to be after I leave something that I've done for such a huge part of my life. Did you feel that at all as you walked away from the game?
Yeah, I think I'm going to start to feel it more and more as the season gets
Mhm.
on, because it's so recent. You're kind of I was ready. I was ready to do something different, and it hasn't kind of hit me just yet. It is weird seeing the games go on, seeing the box scores, and not being a part of it. But I do have some things that I'm doing now to kind of help me bridge that gap and kind of start to build a new identity.
One of those things that you have going on is your own production company called Whiskey Creek Productions. You released your first feature film, Notice to Quit, recently. How did you get involved in that world?
Yeah, so actually, I had a major injury when I was in Boston, and I had the Players Tribune over there. They actually did a comeback documentary, and the guy who directed and did the whole documentary became a close friend of mine. We obviously spent a lot of time together, Simon Hacker, and we decided to form a production company. He said, he came to me and was like, let's make this movie. I read the script, I connected with it, and felt like it was a really good script. And we decided to go ahead and make this movie. And Simon did an unreal job. It stars Michael Zegan from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, who I know a lot of people have seen. And it was in 304 screens across the country, which was incredible for such a small independent, production company. We actually ended up distributing it ourselves as well, and couldn't be more proud of what Simon was able to do. Michael, the rest of the cast. I mean, it was really cool to see. And now that I'm retired, I'm able to kind of get more involved in that. I was able to go to Skywalker Sound, which is out there near San Francisco, and help with some of the sound editing and kind of watch and see what they do there. And it's a whole world that I don't really know much about, but I'm able to learn and really kind of dive into.
Do you guys have anything new cooking on the forefront with that production company?
We do. We do. We already have a couple more scripts, like in-house scripts, that we're looking to then kind of keep the momentum going and make more movies. We also, because of the movie and everything, we have all these other people that are sending scripts, and so we're trying to kind of sort through all those, but we will for sure be having more stuff in the future.
And that is very cool. Going back to the NBA and the NFL, we get into conversations about leagues and what it's like to play in one versus another. Do you think there's an NBA player who's just meant to be in the NFL, could just thrive in the NFL?
This has been a topic of conversation around NBA locker rooms for a long time, let me tell you. I personally think there are certainly lots of NBA guys right now that if they were to train for the NFL could probably make an NFL roster and be
Hmm.
successful. The one I always think about and I've always thought about, as with I'm sure a lot of people, would be LeBron. I just think that he's such an unbelievable athlete. If he was to train, and I know he played in high school, but if he was to actually train and be in the NFL, to watch him, I just want to see if he can do it. I would just want to see how good he could be. I know playing against him in the NBA for so long, he's still doing it, which is mind boggling. What he and not just doing it, he's still dominating to some extent. I would just love to see him try the NFL, just kind of like go back in time and insert him when he was 20, 22 or 23 and see how good he could be. I think he would be one of the best. I don't know any NFL guys that I know there's probably some NFL tight ends that played. I know tight ends play a lot of tight ends play college basketball, um, but I don't know if anyone could make it in the NBA right now. There's just, especially in today's NBA, there's so much skill, and so it's tough for me to see, very many NFL guys being able to make that transition.
When you say there's
Now,
so
but
much,
I am biased. I am an NBA player,
yeah,
so
totally. I want you to expand upon that. But when you say there's so
okay.
much skill in the NBA today, what do you mean by that? Why is it more difficult now than it used to be to play in that league?
Because I think that in today it seems like there's a lot of 4 out, 5 out, where it's the game's less physical than it used to be. More guys are required to handle the ball. More guys are required to shoot. And so I just think that the NFL it doesn't require as much. Like you need so much skill, I think, to play in basketball. I think the NFL is a little more physical. You need to be
Hmm.
more physical. You need to be more athletic, fast, speed. Um, and so and I obviously don't know what I'm talking about in the NFL world. This is coming from an NBA player, but
Right, from an NBA
uh,
mindset.
from a mindset of the NBA
Yeah.
player. But I just think in today's NBA, it would just be really hard. Also, the height thing is huge.
Hmm.
The height thing, which I think would also restrict a lot of NBA guys. I mean, it would be tough if you're 6'9", you're just a huge target out
Yes.
there if you're on offense and if you're getting hit near the knees or even the legs. I mean, it's really hard. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just where I stand on the whole issue. I think you look at a lot of the tight ends, some of the best tight ends of all time were former basketball players
Hmm.
who couldn't make it to the NFT to the NBA. So, those are my thoughts on that.
We've got a wide receiver rookie on our team. Keon Coleman is his name. He played basketball at Michigan State for a little bit. So it's been interesting to see his transition into the NFL. He then transferred and played collegiately elsewhere in football and kind of let go of basketball to focus on football. But he uses, the basketball mindset to do everything on the field. He's really good at high pointing the football. You could see just how much he can get off the ground, and that all comes from basketball, and that all comes from knowing how to handle a basketball and then knowing how to shoot and score, dribble, you name it. I think a lot of the skills that you learn from playing basketball, even if you just played in high school, it can translate to the NFL game. And I think a lot of coaches and scouting staffs find that very intriguing and good when they have a guy that, you could say, oh, I was an 1,000-point scorer in basketball, or I did this, or I played on this AAU team. It makes it more enticing because you know how to handle a ball. You can then handle a football.
Right.
Just
Yeah, I
watching.
mean, I think it's interesting. There are a lot. I feel like there's more players that started with basketball and ended up in football.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's very many that started in football and ended up in basketball. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's very true. You always hear the stories about the football players who played basketball but then ended up going with football instead of basketball. In terms of watching the game today, now that you have a front row seat to it and you're not in it, you're not constantly training for it, are there any players that you really enjoy watching in today's NBA that you think are young and up and coming?
um, yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously really fun to watch Victor in San Antonio just because he's a created player on a video game. I mean, he's so tall and is still doing moves that guards would do. So it's fun to watch what he does. I mean, Anthony Edwards is obviously, speaking of players that I know he was in the topic of discussion as far as could potentially play in the NFL, but he's an unreal athlete. And then when you put his ability to shoot, his ability to make plays, he just becomes a really tough player to guard, but a fun player to watch. So I think also in OKC, another one. I played there. It's fun to watch them. It's fun to watch Chet. Chet's another one that's also like Victor, kind of and it'll be fun to watch their rivalry as they both kind of get older in the league. But he's somebody that is a 7-footer that has guard skills, and so it's really fun to watch.
I have to ask you this. What has it been like, and how unique is it to have LeBron playing with his son in the NBA?
It's incredible. I mean, like I said earlier, for him to still be playing at his age and not just playing, there's been other players that have done it for that long, but then by that year, they're really just like on the end of the bench. They're not, or they're spot shooters or whatever. They're not really doing that much. LeBron is still starting, playing most of the game, having a huge impact on winning and losing. And so for him to have his son there too, it's really special. And that's an incredible moment for him and his family, but also just for the game. That's the first time it's ever happened, right? So I think it certainly is really cool.
Gordon, 14 seasons in the NBA, the wins, the games, the playoff wins, the minutes, the shots that you made. What sticks out as, some memories that are never going to leave you?
Oh man. Definitely some ups and downs throughout my career. Those you always remember. Certainly the major injury in Boston, which probably changed, the course of my career. I'll never forget that. Never forget the night I was drafted. Like I said to you, I didn't ever think in a million years that I would be playing in the NBA. So the night that I was drafted was a really cool moment. Kind of where like all my dreams came true. And then also speaking of LeBron, I hit a game winner in Utah against LeBron and the Cavs. And so that was a really, really cool memory as well that I'll remember.
That's pretty epic. One memory that we Bills fans and just people in the NFL have is going down to Indianapolis for the NFL scouting combine every year. And when we're there, everybody has to get their hands on a shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's. Do you have a take on the shrimp cocktail there?
Overrated. Big time overrated. Everyone always talks about that. I am not a St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail fan, so I think it's overrated. It's a little spicy for me. Do
you want to put something else on the map since you're calling that overrated?
I mean, I'm going to get probably a lot of heat for saying this, but my favorite pizza in Indianapolis is Donato's. I'm a big Donato's fan. My kids love Donato's. So anytime we go back, we got to get Donato's pizza. So that's what I would say.
I love it. Shout out to Donato's Pizza. Gordon, Thank you so much for taking the time to get us ready for this Sunday game against the Colts. Talk a little NBA too. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Maddy.